Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Coaching Chats. I'm your host, Ruxana Alieva. Today, I'm joined by another wonderful guest, Alena Luciani. Alena Luciani is a strength and conditioning coach and the founder and head coach at Training to Excel. She is passionate about working with coaches and athletes who aim to excel in the game of life. In this episode, we are going to discuss strength and conditioning training, exploring its role for athletes and coaches, as well as its application to the general population. Welcome to the show, Alina.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat today.
Perfect. So I forgot to ask you, did I pronounce your name correctly?
You nailed it. You nailed it. That was perfect.
Uh, Perfect. I'm glad. I'm glad because I didn't know how to pronounce it correctly. But yeah, perfect. Um, Alina, I'm just thinking maybe we'll go straight into the questions. Um, I have to say that I've been absolutely fascinated by, and I'm absolutely fascinated by your academic background, what you do as a coach, what actually inspired you to pursue your career in the field of strength and conditioning.
I have been an athlete all my life, and I think that was definitely a catalyst for wanting me to continue being involved in sport in some capacity. So I remember being in high school, that's when I really started to take my own strength and conditioning really seriously. I was fortunate enough to play two sports in university. I played 4 years of basketball and a year of lacrosse. So when I started getting really serious into my sport, I kind of followed what my brothers were doing. I have two older brothers. And that's when I really got into the strength training, the conditioning aspect, what I was doing off the court, and how that positively impacted me on the court. And in high school, I knew I wanted to stay involved in sport. I wasn't sure what that looked like, but I just the world of sport is so amazing and so much fun to be a part of. And so when I got into strength and conditioning as an athlete, I obviously started meeting coaches and different trainers, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is actually a legit career path. So that's what nudged me to go into kinesiology in university, and then pursue other opportunities in continuing education, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, that's I think I really just wanted to stay involved with maybe not necessarily just basketball, but sport in general. And at the time when I was younger, I didn't, there strength and conditioning almost isn't an option that's talked about a lot in kinesiology. I feel like when I was going into the program at Laurier, a lot of people asked, do I want to be a physiotherapist or do I want to be a phys ed teacher? And both are wonderful career paths, but neither of those were something that I wanted to get into. So when I got introduced to the strength and conditioning world, I thought, oh my gosh, yeah, this is my place. This is where I want to be.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing. That you from such a young age, you found your passion, what you really enjoyed doing, and then you pursued a career actually in that area. That's amazing. And yeah, you did mention kinesiology. That's just normally it's the science of movement. Is that correct? Is it basically study how the body moves? Is that right?
Yeah, the study of human movement, and there's a lot of different branches under kinesiology. There were a lot of different courses that you kind of take under that umbrella, everything from sports psychology to biomechanics and calculus and all these different courses that, help you apply the knowledge to the human body and how it moves and how you can go about improving it. So I mean I loved being in that program because I was so passionate to learn about the human body and how, different things applied in different ways. So, yeah, I think it's like it was a really cool program to be able to take, and it's been really cool to be able to speak with students that are in it now and kind of see how the program's evolved over the years, which is really cool.
Yeah, I could imagine because this area I think is evolving so fast with the new research, always comes out something new. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fascinating. And you mentioned strength and conditioning. I think you said that it's not very typical for the person who wants to work in that area to study kinesiology. And how, yeah, if we move to strength and conditioning, what is strength and conditioning training? Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, strength and conditioning really just kind of encompasses the things you do to help an individual become more resilient in their sport or in life. So, the strength portion is going to be reflective of strength training and using that as a modality to, help increase strength and power and, resilience in the body. And the conditioning piece is obviously the development of different energy systems and the cardiovascular system, and there's a lot of different things that are encompassed in strength and conditioning. I'm very particular about calling myself a strength and conditioning coach as opposed to a personal trainer. And not that there's anything wrong with being a personal trainer, but it's because a lot of my background is in the strength and conditioning field and working with athletes and, team sport athletes. And though I do still administer one-on-one training sessions, the coach part of my title is really important. And I'm sure we'll get into this in our conversation, but I come behind a lot of coaches, a lot of sport coaches in my family. And so the coach part of my title is really, really important to me. I hold that very near and dear to my heart. And I think it's a very, very impactful role. And yeah, it's a title I take very, very seriously. So the strength and conditioning piece, like I said, it encompasses different modalities that you use to help prepare someone for an upcoming season or help them withstand the demands of their sport or life. But I think that, like I said, the strength and conditioning coach title is very important to me because I take that coach title very, very, it's very important to me.
Yeah, sure. I think you need to also, I think which you have already obtained that specific certification, like a registered strength and conditioning coach. I think you, in order to do the job that you're doing, also you actually have to be qualified. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think there are differences in certifications between a strength and conditioning coach and, let's say, a personal trainer. And a lot of the information, like they're the foundational principles of strength and conditioning, and they're going to be educated in a lot of different certifications, but there are definitely, I would say, like specialty things that you learn in, I'm certified through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. They have a certified strength conditioning specialist, which is what I'm certified through. They also have a certified personal trainer certification as well. But there are certain things that you learn about, managing a group of athletes and how you modify things and how you, progress and regress things. And of course, these are things that you can apply across the board, but there are, I think, specific qualities and specific things that are important to have if you are going to work with the athlete population to ensure that you're taking the best care of them.
Yeah, actually, it's absolutely. I think, yeah, I think, I suppose when you work with athletes, you normally are focused on athletic performance, right? Which we'll probably will get into that more, like speed, agility, quickness, right? All these drills. Whereas if you take any person, like general population, they don't require, that much unless they have specific goal. I suppose. I think, yeah, we'll definitely talk about the differences between these two. But is that correct? Like you are, because it's more athletic performance. You work on athletic performance, so they, I don't know, run faster or yeah, I don't know,
Yeah, so
reactions.
yeah. Yeah, so there are definitely certain qualities that athletes in sport absolutely need to have to ensure that they're prepared for the demands of their sport. And in a lot of cases, yeah, like speed, agility, quickness, being able to react to, different things happening. Sport is very unpredictable, so we need to ensure that these athletes are explosive and powerful and strong and resilient in different positions and in chaotic environments. But if I'm being honest, I refer to everyone as an athlete. So I work with athletes in sport and athletes in life. And there's still a lot of qualities and principles that apply to the athlete and sport population that I very much utilize with my athletes in life. And I think part of it is like, so let's take power as a quality. So power is, moving a resistance fast and being really explosive with it. And I think that's really, really important for the nervous system and to ensure that, if let's say something topples off the top shelf, like being able to catch it, or, if you trip on the sidewalk, being able to, recoup and, stay stable and stay on your feet. Like these are things that everyone needs. And so, of course, there are certain things that we, when I work with, let's say my hockey players, we're very focused on developing very specific energy systems to reflect their sport. But then when I'm working with my athletes in life, there are still some of those qualities that I'm going to ensure that they have, more so from that nervous system standpoint, and ensuring that, as we age, we continue to be able to react and respond to different situations that life is going to bring our way. So maybe different environments, but I think a lot of these qualities can still be applied in different ways.
Yeah, so that's so true, and I read that as well. In terms of power, we as people, I think we lose power as we get older. Like power is a grip as well, right? Would you say that like
Grip
um
strength, I
yeah,
would I
no,
would
no,
put
no,
under like strength.
strength, yeah,
I would
yeah,
put
so,
that
yeah,
under like strength. Yeah.
yeah. But definitely, as you said, like for example, reaction quickness, or like let's say if we need to get up, like something came up, like happened at home, right? So be able to do it safely without get injured, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. And especially like as we age, I work actually a new demographic that I would say in the half or so I've started to work with are individuals over the age of 70. And I think it's especially important for them to, ensure that their nervous system is staying primed and being utilized in different ways. So when they do, when they are in a situation in life, maybe they take a fall, I want them to have the strength and confidence and resilience to be able to stand up and to be able to stay stable and to be able to, live with a really high quality of life, which I think is something that isn't discussed as much. And a lot of these individuals that I work with still play and, play different sports and are involved in different activities. So it'd be silly of me not to also ensure that they're powerful and explosive and, they're quick to react on things. So I think sometimes we think the older population is weak. I don't know. I feel like some people think the older population is weak, and I can confirm they are so strong and they absolutely can train, in a lot of ways that, athletes in sport train as well.
Yeah, no, that's so true because I think I've read some studies where actually sorry, the study that shows that people like 50 plus, if they start strength training, they have the same results as opposed to if you take someone who's in their 30s who will do the same program. So they react both to the same program. It's not like
Hmm.
they can't build muscle or they can't get stronger. Yeah, and that's amazing how the impact of that is making on people in older population. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. And yeah, I was going to ask you what type of, in terms of sport, what type of, you mentioned basketball. Do you work, like, do you work with what kind of sports do you work with? Uh, yeah.
Yeah, so I've worked with a lot of different sports. I've worked with football and basketball, hockey, lacrosse, rugby, swimming, cheerleading. Like because I have worked at several different universities. That's where my strength and conditioning career started. Was I was a head strength coach at a university here in Ontario, and then I went to do my master's at a school in the NCAA. And then I came back, got a job at another university, and then I actually work in a very part time capacity at McMaster University. So I've worked with a lot of different sports because, in the collegiate setting, you kind of work with everyone in different areas. But I currently work with majority hockey athletes. And then I still work with some soccer players and basketball players and lacrosse athletes. So I really do love working with different sports because even if I didn't play them, it challenges me to get to know the sport in a different way and, do my due diligence and do my research to ensure that I'm programming in a way that's going to be really supportive for them to prepare for their upcoming season. But I think, the sports that I enjoy working with the most, I would have to say are hockey, football, and basketball. And, for a variety of different reasons, and part of it is past experiences I've had with different teams. But I don't know, there's just like something really fun about working with team sport athletes and something that's very rewarding as well.
Oh wow! And in Canada, is it football or is it soccer? I know in America it's called, like American football is called soccer. Is it in Canada as well?
Yeah.
Oh, already.
Yeah, so when I refer to football, I mean like American football,
Oh, yeah.
versus like soccer would be football. I always find it kind of confusing because if you think about it, it's like soccer should probably be called football because you use your feet. I don't know, like that seems
Yeah.
more intuitive, but I grew up, both my older brothers, my dad, my cousins, my uncle, they all played American football and coached it. So I've always been kind of heavily involved in that sport, and I've also, been very grateful to have had different opportunities to work with different football teams here in Canada and in the US. And yeah, it's just a sport that like it's a really great challenge, especially being a young woman in the field. I think, things are definitely changing and have been changing over the past couple of years. But when I first started working with one of the football teams that I've worked with, it definitely, it challenged me in different ways. Not as much as a coach, but I think as a person and just, being confident in my abilities and being able to be assertive and, command the attention of a group of 100 football players like that, that took some work and it took some, yeah, it took some practice to be confident and be able to be in those situations. But I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And do you follow European football at all?
Not
No.
totally. It's actually a sport. I don't necessarily want to tap into this, but
Yeah.
we were watching Copa America because
Hmm.
Canada was in it and I love watching Team Canada play. But watching European footballs can sometimes infuriate me just because I feel like it can be very dramatic at times. And obviously I know there's contact that's made, but then sometimes I just can't. I think because I work with American football and hockey and when they get knocked down, they just get back up and keep going. There are some dramatic players that it's just an interesting sport to watch.
I think I think I know who you might refer to, but if you're referring to the last Euros, did you watch the
Yeah.
Euros 2024? Euros,
I
yeah.
watched a Yeah, I watched a bit of it, but I was mostly watching Copa America because Canada was playing.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I think Argentina. Did Argentina win, right? Did I? Is that correct? I think, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so Canada played them in the semis and then they went on to win it against I forget. I can't think of it off the top of
No,
my head right now.
no, it's okay. Sorry, I digress completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was just wondering whether you follow European football, and generally, I just again, I'm very fascinated that you are so multifaceted in a way that you work with so many with different kinds of sport. It's not like you're just I don't know, strength and conditioning coach, like hockey, we take just hockey, you cover all different type of sports. And I believe the drill's probably quite similar, right? Well, I suppose, or like the programming, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a really common misconception when people think like sport specific training. So the way I approach that is I'm going to ensure that I'm programming to get particular adaptations for that athlete, But when it comes to the quote unquote sports specific piece, I really think that is when they go to practice. And for, let's say, my hockey players, that's when they're on the ice. And my job is to prepare their bodies to be on the ice and to be able to be resilient and, to be able to move fast and move explosively. But when it comes to the actual skill work, like that's what I view as sport specific. And I think, there's a lot of individuals, especially I think in the private sector and when you're a business owner, a lot of people tell you to niche down. And I think it's really important to know your niche and know, who it is that you love to serve and who it is that you're qualified to serve. But I also think sometimes people will almost niche down too specifically and it will narrow their focus so much that they won't be able to grow and learn from different demographics. So when I was referring to that older demographic, that 70 plus that I now work with, well, in reality, a lot of them still fit my niche. A lot of them are retired athletes. They retired many, many years ago, but they still kind of fall into that athlete in life category. But I also learned so much from working with them and then working with my 25-year-old hockey player or my 18-year-old hockey player because working with an older demographic, sometimes I have to cue things differently. Sometimes we have to get creative and resourceful with the modifications that we use. Sometimes we're a little bit more limited with certain movement patterns or certain drills. So I have to be really adaptable and really resourceful when I'm working with them. And those are qualities that I don't necessarily get to utilize as much when I'm working with a very able-bodied, 18-year-old that's like a young training age, has really good movement mechanics, built really good habits, in a short period of time. So I just think it's important that, we diversify essentially our portfolio of who we work with. And it's like I said, it's great to know who you want to serve and who kind of your bread and butter is. But I also would encourage, coaches and trainers to also go outside the box a little bit and perhaps take on different opportunities and different individuals that might be able to teach them something different than their specific niche could.
Yeah, no. And it's also, I think it's fun to work with different types of people, right? Not just
Mhm.
athletes, because I think they've, again, I've never worked in that field, but I suppose it's very different. They're quite different from just normal people. I mean, people who haven't exercised, what you call like general
Mhm.
population, right? Like normal person. So,
Yeah.
but still, as you said, I think because you work with all kinds of people, and if you train them, they can show good strengths and um, conditioning as well. Good
Yeah.
performance.
And like I said, a lot of the things that I would work with athletes in sport on, I'm also applying to athletes in life because I think, especially nowadays, like we have to be resilient, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally. And I think strength training is a great way to acquire discipline and, work towards a goal. And I'm very performance based. I want people to feel good. I want people to feel strong. I want people to physically get stronger. And I think it's really empowering to develop good habits in the weight room and learn how to lift weight and pick up heavy stuff and put it down. I think that's super empowering and I think it has a ripple effect in everyone's like everyday life.
Yeah, sure. No, no, absolutely. It does. Even in your what you call like daily living routine, just standing, especially when you get older. That's so important too. It's now we probably, if you're a bit younger, you don't pay attention to that. But I think when you reach that, like 60, 70, even like more than that, that becomes really a priority. Yeah, no, that's true. And so you work because I follow your Instagram, which I absolutely love your account, which I told you behind the scenes before we started this conversation. And I saw some stories when you do certain drills with kettlebells and all kinds of. Is that the this is just a normal? Is it just normal people you work with? They always just all.
So Yeah, so I work with a collection of individuals. So
Mhm.
as I mentioned before, I refer to everyone as an athlete. I work with both athletes
Mhm.
in sport and athletes in life. Right now, you're probably seeing some athletes in sport on my social media because I'm working with a couple hockey players during their off season, and then some of the other individuals I work with a lot of runners. I do a lot of small group training, and I work with a lot of athletes in life. But like I said, a lot of them are retired athletes that want to continue training in a very intentional way. And I think, being an athlete is not necessarily about having a playing field or a playing surface to prepare for. I think it's really more a mindset of individuals understanding the importance of training in an intentional way, being strong, being resilient, and just the willingness and the desire to, make themselves better in some capacity and perform at their best, whether it is in a sport or if it's just in their everyday life. So you'll kind of see a collection of individuals. I work with some teams. I think being in the private sector and running my own business, I have the privilege of getting to choose who I work with. And I really love working with both athletes in sport and athletes in life, so I always try to make sure both of them are on my schedule.
That sounds so cool. I actually found myself thinking when I was watching your stories, like I wish I was there. I found it. I found your the exercise was so science based, obviously because I'm studying this myself, and it just has such a nice vibe. Everyone has fun. I think there were a few people in the room, and they everyone is doing different things. But I found myself like I wish I was there. I love that type of group class when it's performed by someone who knows, as you said, who's intentional, who knows science. Because a lot of things these days, you can see on the internet, something is trendy and people try to push it to people, sell it. Some programs which are not even science based. That's why I'm a personally
Yeah.
hungry person for finding these people who operate from science, who operate from
Mhm.
facts rather than, this is just a new trend and I'm going to, I don't know, 2 weeks abs to like summer body, something like that. That's like when it has a time
I
frame, achieve something. That's
Yeah, I I think like it's funny because sometimes I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like my Instagram must be so boring to follow because I literally post about the same things and doing the same exercises over and over again." But then when I thought about it, I'm like, one of my core values as a human, as a coach, as a business owner is integrity. So it's really, really important for me to show up with integrity, whether it's in real life or on social media. And if that means that I'm not the popular one on Instagram and I don't have a ton of followers, that's okay because I want the people that follow along and the people that are part of my community to know what I'm about, not only in the social media sphere, but also in real life. Like I guess my little like training to excel mantra is do the simple things, do them well, and do them often. And if that doesn't get clicks and that doesn't get likes, that's okay because that's how I operate. And I always want to make sure that I'm showing up with integrity and I'm showing up as myself and I'm promoting things that I wholeheartedly believe in. And, I just always want to practice what I preach. And the things that I share are like, yeah, I'm super regimented. I'm like very, very consistent with, my routine and how I set up my schedule and also what I share and post. So yeah, it's like not super fun and exciting, but like that's my life. And I think more people should just like post their actual life and not these like crazy highlight reels that we see. So yeah, I think social media can be a beautiful space in terms of like connecting with people and being able to share your message. And I also think it's a space where people need to look at things with a really critical eye and ensure that like if they are getting information from someone, check their certifications. Are they certified or do they just look the part? Because there's a huge, huge difference between an actual coach and or trainer and a fitness influencer. Like big difference. And I think it's really important that people know how to differentiate the two.
Yeah, yeah. If we talk about that, yeah, and I think you made such a great point. Just definitely, if you want to, if you look into working with someone, definitely check credentials, certifications,
Hmm.
because as you said, there are these fitness influencers, which I think some of them don't have zero certifications. They probably have never opened textbooks, but because I don't know, maybe they have good genetics, or they worked in the gym, they, it's like my body is my image. That's just the, which is, wrong. Buy my program and you look like me, something like that. Would you agree with that?
For sure. And I think like it's to me, it's very obvious the coaches and the trainers that aren't certified. And I don't mean that in a rude way, but it's like it's amazing how on social media, if someone speaks with confidence, people automatically believe them. And it's really scary because I'll see, someone be like, "Oh, this is how you set up a program and this is how you should do this exercise." And I'm like, has this person ever opened a textbook? Like, that is a blatant lie. Like, that is actually total misinformation. And I don't want to be the person that like hangs out in the comment section. So I just scroll past. And I think I mentioned this to you before we hit record, but I try to be the change that I wish to see in the industry. So instead of complaining about it, I'm just going to, I move past and I stay in my lane. But it is disappointing to see because it's like I'm someone that really values my education. I spent a lot of time and energy, you know, through my kinesiology degree, getting my master's in sports science and recreation, continuing my education each and every month and year to ensure that I am coming from a well educated place to be able to provide value to people. And I think it just makes me sad that some people don't care about that and don't genuinely care about people's health and well being. I think it's really, what's the word I'm looking for? I think it's really irresponsible to promote something or talk about something that you're not educated to speak on. And I think, especially when it comes to someone's health and someone's performance and someone's body, you should absolutely seek someone out that understands physiology, that understands anatomy, that understands what they're providing to you in a program, how it actually makes an impact on the body. Because anyone can write up a program that makes you sweat and that makes things feel hard. And it's another thing to actually be able to challenge someone and like progressively overload them over time. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but I just think that's something to be really mindful of.
No, no, no. I think you hit the nail on. Sorry, I'm trying to say you said very important things because we are inundated with all this fitness, influencers in fitness information online. And as I said to you before we hit record button, that it was so refreshing to find um, your Instagram, your content. It was so refreshing to see your content because you are, like I said, you are just an educator. You educate people, which we all need. And you come from science, and it shows through. It shows through. You don't have these, like, look at me, all these aesthetics. And I'm not saying aesthetic, nothing wrong with aesthetic goals. You see, I'm getting
No.
emotional right now. But
Yeah.
it will come, it will follow, but it's not that type of Instagram. It's just, oh my god, I was like, oh my gosh, I found a person who I can follow, I can, trust, I can, I just enjoy your content because you, as you said, and it's good. So just to say, that's good that you are really want to make, the changes in the fitness industry, because I mean, I think it's getting slightly better. However, no, with social media, I think it maybe worse. I don't know, but there are a few, very few people like yourself. But the rest is, I don't know. Yeah, when I see content like that, which is more of a aesthetics, or if you want to get this, if you want to get big glutes, I'm just scroll past. This is just, I'm not, because this is not functional for me. I'm looking as well for functional training as well, something that can prepare
Yeah.
me for years to come, right? So I, like, I'm when I'm in my 50s or 60s and etc., I'm strong, I can lift things, I'm independent. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking long term. I mean, obviously, I want to look good, but it's not my priority. I'm not just looking, oh, turn exercise to, have glutes. And then you realize the person has a surgical, a surgery. Sorry, I think I'm just,
No, no, no,
um,
no, no, this is great. I think there's nothing wrong. Like I often say this, there's nothing wrong with having an aesthetic goal. But I think when you train for performance, a lot of times the aesthetic piece is a byproduct. And I think what I've been seeing a lot of recently on social media are, and I think it's specifically directed towards women. I see a lot of it. And it's like, shifting your body composition and looking a certain way and this aesthetics, and this is something that like as millennials we have been hit with since our youth, so it's just evolved in different ways over time. But it's like, when I look at some of these programs being administered, I'm thinking like, this is a great way to develop a certain muscle group, but I'm like, over time this is actually going to lead to a lot of imbalances in the body, and it's not functional. Like I said, I want my people to be able to react and respond in real time, whether it's in a sport, they're chasing their grandkids around, they're walking upstairs, they tripped over a sidewalk. Like, I want my people to be able to be like, whoa, oh, okay, yep, get up and keep going, or be able to like catch something and react and respond. And, I just think social media sometimes, a lot of times, does a disservice to individuals by showing them like, and I think from like an algorithm standpoint, Instagram rewards the flashy stuff, right? It rewards the six pack, and it rewards, all these crazy like cuts of, different videos and things like that. So I think the people that are actually on there to educate and share things that they learned in their research and in their studies and all these different things, like that's the stuff that doesn't get circulated. So yeah, I just always, like I said, I really try to just stay in my lane, and I scroll past those things. And when I have people in my community approach me with questions, I always just try to, have a really open discussion and open dialogue with them, and really share things from a scientific perspective, or at least from like a physiological standpoint, and explain to them like what happens if they're only training one muscle group, several times a week over a long period of time, like what that could do in the long run. And I think you mentioned it, like you want to train to be strong in your 50s and your 60s and your 70s. And that's something that I really value, is like training in a really sustainable way, and something that's going to provide our bodies with longevity and be able to compete in sport and activities. Like, my mom's 72 and my mom plays golf and she plays tennis and she plays pickleball and she gardens, and she is hella athletic and hella strong. And I think she's just a perfect example of like, if we take care of ourselves and, we strength train and we eat our protein and we get good rest in our sleep, like we can continue doing the things that bring us joy and things that we love, and moving with a really high quality of life, which I just think at the end of the day is so important.
yeah, it's very important. Um, I'm just thinking if we go back slightly to strength and conditioning. Sorry, just as well, just if we talk about principles. Sorry, I'm just uh, changing the subject, just coming back to strength training, just for my understanding. Sorry, for athletes. You mentioned in terms
Mhm.
of the principles and type of training. You already mentioned power, so power is very important for athletes. Like obviously strength, right? You did mention strength. What maybe drills? What else do you use with them?
Yeah, so like I said, I think like the foundational principles that I think about are, as I mentioned, doing the simple things, doing them well, and doing them often. So
Mm-hmm.
the simple things being focusing on our foundational movement patterns. And ultimately with athletes in sport, what I try to focus on is, in sport, they are never going to be in perfect alignment. I shouldn't say never, but they are rarely in perfect position to execute things with perfect technique. That's just not sport, right? Like if you think of volleyball, if you think of hockey, like they're sure you could set up in a certain position in certain scenarios, but for the most part, they're reacting and responding to the ball or the puck or things that are happening on the field of play. And so I think the biggest thing is to ensure that they're resilient outside of that perfect position and in chaotic scenarios. So we absolutely focus on power. We for sure focus on speed. And I think learning proper speed mechanics is super transferable to a lot of different athletes of different sports. So just teaching people how to accelerate. So how to get fast and get out of like a static position and get out of it quickly and move and, move in a lot of cases forward or laterally in a really kind of powerful and strong position. And then also, just as important, to teach them how to decelerate and teach them how to stop safely, because there are a lot of injuries that happen when athletes don't know how to brake, or athletes are in kind of a weird position when they're trying to decelerate and they're trying to stop. So, when people kind of plant and then pivot, we want to make sure that their body's super resilient and they're able to, absorb that force and transfer it into a different direction. So I think having them move in different directions is really important. Having them be agile and quick and responsive and reactive is really important. And then, when I kind of think about a training program or a training when we move later in the program after we've done our speed and after we've done our power work and our strength work, the accessory work, I think in a lot of cases, is to not only be able to provide that specific individual with things that they need support in. So if I am working with, let's say, a pitcher or a volleyball player that's always using one arm, then it's like maybe we focus on doing a lot of unilateral work in their accessory work to help kind of like balance things out as best we can. Or filling gaps that maybe they're not getting in their sport. So if there are certain positions that they're in a lot in their sport, putting them in different positions in that accessory block to have their body move and be strong in different directions, in different planes of motion, and in different positions. I think that's when we create a really well-rounded athlete. And like I said, those are principles that I use with my athletes in sport, but also with my athletes in life.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah, you mentioned, you mentioned resilience. Every time, follow football and like for example, Euros, when the team goes to penalties. Oh my God, it's so nerve-wracking for me. But I could imagine how it's nerve-wracking for the players, because the whole world is watching at them. And I don't you didn't say obviously mental resilience, but I think it still comes into play where you need to just concentrate, but like everybody's watching at you, and basically the win, the outcome, it actually might depend on you. So but again, I went off in a different direction. I don't know if that's as well kind of mental toughness. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think the mental resilience, I think that's also a byproduct of challenging yourself in the weight room and in the gym. Not only is that going to build discipline, you're essentially microdosing adversity, right? You're microdosing yourself with things that challenge you in different ways, and it's in a very controlled environment. But I think over time, those small doses make things that happen in a game a little bit easier, because you're like, I've done this, I've overcome this challenge, I'm capable, I know what my body's capable of, I know how it can withstand impact, and it can go into overtime and carry me through that. And I think that should, I would hope that it adds confidence for that athlete. And going back to what I mentioned before about, being an athlete is not necessarily having a field of play. It's doing things each and every day to make yourself just a little bit better. And in a lot of cases, sometimes that's just showing up. And it has nothing to do with your actual physical output in the training session. And it has everything to do with maybe you woke up that morning and you're like, the last thing I want to do is train, but you get up and you do it anyway. And when you do those little things over time, it makes those bigger obstacles a little bit easier to handle, because something my brother used to always tell me when I was playing basketball is act like you've been there before and you'll be there again. And I think that just really helped me show up with confidence each and every time I stepped on the court, or each and every time I stepped up to run a team session in front of a group of athletes. And yeah, I think that like mental resilience is something that we learn by being consistent with our daily practices, whether that's training or getting to bed at a decent hour to ensure that we're well rested. Like there's so many things that play into it. And I think a lot of people think it's really complicated to, train an athlete or to, train like an athlete in life. But in reality, it's a lot of simple things just done really, really well and done consistently. And I think the consistency piece is something that we don't want to admit that that's the magic pill, but it is, right? We all want this like quick fix or this one thing to do. And in reality, it's like, no, just be consistent with really solid daily practices. And that's what over time is going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah, no, it's so true. There were times in my life where I was very interested in sports psychology, what do you call like high performance psychology, psychology
Mhm.
of excellence, something like that. And what I remembered, what I learned is that athletes they are very clear on their purpose and their vision. They know what they need to achieve. That's why, as you said, like sometimes they can get up in the morning and they don't feel like doing anything, but because they have that goal, like I don't know, win tournament or something. So they're like, in order to get there, I must um, go and train. And also, I remember they also take risks every single day because I think it's a risky sport. This is probably how I can interpret. But yeah, it just was good to learn how they. I was so curious on their mindset. Just how they think. To achieve these results. But and again, maybe that clarity they have as well on what they want to achieve compared like to some people, some ordinary people, I would say. But yeah, this is just to add on that. And I was also wondering, Alina, in terms of assessment, how do you perform assessment on athlete? Is it no? I was going to say, is it overhead squat? No, it's normally this is I've been taught in PT. If you see a client, you need to perform an overhead squat in order to see the posture, etc. But obviously, I believe for athletes is very different.
Yeah, so the way I approach the assessment is I kind of have a hybrid protocol, I call it. So there's a combination between an intake. So this is an opportunity for, I send the individual a form and they take some time to sit and fill out the information. And I think this is important because sometimes in an initial consultation, when you're just like rifling through questions, like and especially if you're working with a younger athlete or someone that's newer to strength training, it can be overwhelming. So I like starting with an intake, which is generally in a written form. So it goes through, logistics of where the person's at and how many years of training and but then it goes into their goals. Like I want to get to know this individual on, a deeper basis. And then after the intake comes the conversation. So that's when we sit down and we kind of go through some similar questions to what I would have asked in the intake, but it allows the individual to elaborate on things and it allows me to ask questions based off of something that they had recorded in their initial intake. And then the third portion of it is an assessment. And I think this is important because it helps match the information that they shared in their intake and consultation with how they actually move. So I have worked with some individuals that said, oh, I've been training for X number of years. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, like, they have really refined movement patterns. And then we went, and then their assessment, there were some, areas of opportunity in their movement patterns. And it allows me to then take some specific notes as to what might be most beneficial in their program. So for my specific assessment protocol, I look at mobility in major joints. So we look at T-spine, we look at shoulder, we look at hip, ankle, and then I'm also looking at our foundational movement pattern. So we look at our squat, we look at a hinge pattern, we look at a press pattern, which is I generally use a push-up of some sort or a push-up variation of some sort. We look at their pull, and I love also looking at their split squat or a lunge variation to see what they're like in kind of a unilateral manner. And to be honest, like I do have a specific protocol that I follow, but I also think it's important to like ask questions throughout that assessment process. Like, how do things feel? What positions feel uncomfortable? And sometimes that leads me to using different drills with different individuals. So I kind of have like areas written down, and then depending on what information I'm picking up on in that assessment, I might change the specific drill that we use. And then for my athletes in sport, I do have a testing battery that we go through to ensure that we have a foundation to work from. We kind of have a starting point, and then we can retest throughout their off season or right before they, go into season to kind of see how they progress over time, which I think can be really, really powerful. You don't necessarily have to have a full testing battery, but I think it can be, it's also really encouraging for the person testing to be able to watch themselves progress over time. So yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent, but I do kind of a hybrid.
No, it's great. It just shows as well that even athletes, as you say, they might on the form they might state, I'm fine in certain like movement patterns or something, but when you actually see them perform the certain movement pattern or exercise, as you said, you can see these other limitations or something that they need to improve. That's so interesting to know. And yeah, so we've talked a lot today about athletes. I think it's just fascinating because it's really hard to find someone who actually work with this population. There are a lot of people who work, with general population, but like yourself, it's quite, I don't know, maybe it's for me, it's not very easy to find. That's why I thought whilst I have you here, it's just good to get your
Yeah.
insight on that. And if we move slightly to general population, maybe people who have desk jobs, and you already mentioned the benefits of strength and conditioning training. I believe it will be the same, right? Strength training, right? For people who do, like, for example, have desk jobs.
Mm-hmm.
The benefits, yeah, it's what they can take from, like, people who train like an athletes and to their training.
Yeah, like I said, I approach working with athletes in sport and athletes in life in very, very similar ways. So, maybe it's not necessary for us to do a bunch of speed and agility and quickness drills with, my athletes in life, so that general population demographic, but there's still a lot of the same principles that I utilize. And I think that's something that, makes training to excel unique because I think, you know, and again, going back to the social media piece, it's like everyone wants this like flashy thing. And it's like, oh, I work, one on one with people and I really individualize things. And it's like, yes, like there are ways to do that, but like we're not reinventing the wheel, nor should we try. So I just think that there are certain principles that have been proven for like decades over time, like progressive overload and like our foundational movement patterns. And these are things I think that should be applied to everyone. So it's like something I try to do with my business is make that kind of like athlete training and athlete lifestyle like realistic for my athletes in life and for general population, because a lot of our general population, like the individuals that I work with now, a lot of them are retired athletes and
Mm.
used to have a very specific training protocol and used to follow a program with a team and do all these things. And I want to make that accessible for people in their adult life and people that maybe don't have that community and don't have that opportunity to connect with like-minded people. Like that's really what I'm trying to create. And I think when we make things feel so different, that's when it like I think scares people. Like, oh, I can't train like an athlete. And I'm like, okay, but like the principles that I use with my athletes in sport are the same principles that I use with my athletes in life. Obviously, like there are going to be things that we focus on in different ways. So like a lot of my athletes in life do have desk jobs and are sitting at a computer all day. So we do so much stuff to help with posture and to help open up the hips and like, but it's like that's also what I do with my athletes as well. So I just think like sometimes we think it's so different, but there's actually a ton of overlap. And, I think it's like I try to take it on as my job to make it approachable and make it accessible to everyone.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I personally, I would love to do SAQ drills. Like, I think it's fun. As you said, it's not normally
Yeah.
like any general population would do, but I read the benefits of it. Like, as you get older, it really improves your memory, your alertness. So you might maintain that sharpness of your mind. Is that right? Yeah, I remember I was reading, and I thought they look so fun to do. You know, probably if
You,
gym bro
you
will
know
look
what?
at me now. No, you know, need to get
No,
my yes,
I
sorry.
honestly they are so much fun to do, and I think they're really important to do because it again goes back to like a lot of it helps continue to prime the nervous system and keep us reacting quickly and reacting well and reacting effectively as we age, because our nervous system does, like, if we don't, it's like if you don't use it you lose it. Obviously, like, you're not losing your nervous system, but you're losing the like fast ability to react, and that's something that really starts to decrease as we age. So it is really important that we're doing things that force the body to be explosive and reactive. And honestly, if it makes it more fun for you, like, that's also a massive benefit. Like, training should be fun. And obviously, challenging yourself isn't always fun. And funny enough, this morning in my workout, I was working out at one of the gyms that I work out of. And I said to my friend, I was like, I'm not having fun right now. Like, this is so hard. But 5 minutes later, after I finished that drill, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like $1,000,000 because I just accomplished something that was really challenging. So I think even if that's the benefit, is making you enjoy your training more, then that's a benefit in and of itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think adherence to the program is like if you enjoy, you would adhere more rather than just dread going somewhere and doing something. Yeah, as you said, pick up something you really enjoy doing. It can be even playing sports. Like some people I know, friends of mine, they like playing tennis. So that type of, it's not like per se they don't go to the gym, but they like enjoying social being with other people and play tennis. Just
Absolutely.
depends.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that the adherence piece is very, very important. And that's something that I talk about a lot in my courses, because I think so many people, when they think of programming, they're like, oh, I'm just like writing the sequence of exercises and it's all about the X's and O's. And I'm like, okay, but that's great. You could write an awesome program, but if you don't take the time to connect with someone and communicate what the goal of the program is and be able to speak to them in a way that they understand, it's going to be really hard to get them to adhere to that plan in place, because they're just like, I don't know, like, this doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how to go through this program. Like, does she even care about like what she's giving me? Like, it's really, really important that we have the ability to connect and communicate with the individuals we work with, because that's going to lead to adherence of a plan that we put in place.
Perfect. I'll actually, I was going to ask you about your, is it online courses you do? Is it online? Yeah.
Yeah.
And is
Yeah.
it
Yeah. So,
for? Mhm.
oh no, sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
No, 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 sorry. I was going to say, is it for? I believe. Sorry, I read on your website. I think it's for coaches, right? Is it for coaches or anyone who's interested in enhancing their performance, like in certain areas?
Yeah, so I built my courses with strength and conditioning coaches, personal trainers, and movement practitioners in mind, because I think there are some foundational principles of strength and conditioning that are often kind of brushed over in continuing education. I feel like there's a lot of like niche information out there, but like when it comes to refining the basics and getting really, really good at the basics, I feel like that's something that there's a bit of a gap in. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. But I've had a lot of individuals, even just for their own knowledge. Like, I have someone going through the Coaching Foundations course now, and they're actually, they shared with me that they're applying it more to their own training in hopes in the future then applying it to when they coach and train others. But right now, for the time being, they took it out of their own interest and wanting to learn more for themselves and how to cue things and how to think about things and how to move well and how to go about writing their own program. So as much as I did have it in mind to help, coaches and trainers and practitioners with their continuing education, there's very much individuals that have gone through it for their own benefit and just to learn for themselves and be able to move better and be able to write their own programs and communicate their goals better.
Oh, that sounds so cool. Because what I found with my NASM, I don't know what you call it, the qualification that I'm currently completing. It's a great uh, um, qualification, but I have a feeling that I do lack that, as you said, programming knowledge. Like, how do I program for certain type of people? I think that bit really lacks. But again, I'm still coming. I haven't done my. Sorry, I haven't passed my exam yet. So I've just completed the course, and I'm just going back and forth, just checking everything. Just I'm kind of in preparation, but I don't feel I'm ready to coach people because I know obviously movement patterns and certain exercises, but again, yeah, maybe something I will look into your courses if they can help.
Yeah. Something something I really try to focus on in my courses is the application of the knowledge. So, in a lot of certifications, and it was the same thing for my certifications as well, it's like they give you the theory and they give you the information, but there's kind of gray area on how you go about applying it. And there are a lot of different ways to be successful writing a program. And there's a lot of different ways to be successful in coaching a movement pattern. But I feel like continuing education and certifications lack the application piece and helping people take that information that they know and actually put it into practice. So that's something that I'm really passionate about. And though the information we talk about, like we go very in depth on different topics, but it's like most importantly, I want people to be able to watch a module, close their computer, and be able to apply the information that they learned. So, like in one of the courses, I built the practical programming course. I essentially take someone through a case study example and I go through the training to excel programming checklist. And I say, okay, you have the information, you understand progressive overload, and you understand, linear periodization. Now what? And it's like I actually walk someone through, okay, this is the information we gathered, and then this is what we got from the intake and the consultation and the assessment. Okay, now we're writing a program and this is the template, and now we're plugging things in, because I feel like that's something that's missing. Like that's something that these courses are just like, okay, go ahead, go write a program, and you're like, how do I even build an Excel sheet to write a program? So that's kind of a gap that I'm trying to fill with continuing education.
No, that's great. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's a very very useful, helpful skill to have because, as you said, yeah, I have this knowledge, but again, application wise, it's really hard to put into practice. So it's good that you actually found that niche or gray area that other courses may be missing. They don't just equip people with that type of knowledge, and you help them with that, because that's so important, because it will depend the result of the client they work with, because I don't want to like hurt anyone. I don't want anyone injure themselves. I want to make sure my program is safe and it's functional and intentional, so people get results without injuring themselves. That's something I
That's
care
the goal.
about. So
That's
I'll
the
definitely look
goal.
into
That's
the
the
goal.
goal.
Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely look into that. And I thought before we wrap up, I thought maybe to do something fun and entertaining. Um, I was thinking to ask you rapid fire questions between two exercise, and you choose which one is your favorite and maybe why,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Love that. I'm
So,
ready.
ready. Okay, first one. Squats or deadlifts?
Deadlifts.
Why?
Do you want me to explain? Oh,
Yeah.
um, I'm not gonna lie. I think when I think of a deadlift, I think of like a trap bar deadlift, and like there's honestly nothing better than just like picking heavy shit up and putting it down. Excuse my language, but it just feels
Yeah.
so good. So I love the deadlift pattern.
Yeah, no, it's a great one. Sorry, it was a rapid fire question, so yeah, we'll go fast. It was just my curiosity. Hip thrusts or hammer curls? Hip
Ooh,
thrust
probably hip
or
thrusts.
hip thrust? Okay.
Yeah,
Pull ups or leg press?
pull ups,
Pull ups. A lat pull down or dead bugs?
dead bugs. I love dead bugs.
Yeah, it's a very good one. Chest press or bridge?
Chest press.
press. Push-ups or bent over row?
Bent over row.
Row. Burpees or star jumps?
I feel like I do burpees, so I'm gonna say star jumps.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, to be honest. I'm not a fan of burpees. I just I would like to I wanted to see your reaction. Is that what do you think of burpees actually?
I just think that there are other things we can do to develop the cardiovascular system and challenge the body in different ways. I think it's people get tired very quickly and then it's hard for them to do it well. And I think that there are other things that can be done that will get the same adaptation and get the same result without doing that. Because if I'm being honest, I think people just get really sloppy with it and then it kind of defeats the purpose of moving well.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, it's true. And it's quite complicated, you know. It's like three how many movement patterns in one exercise, something, yeah. In one rep, I would say. And the last one, plank or Pallof press.
Ooh, Pallof press. I love a Pallof press.
Latin. Actually, I was going to ask you about Pallof press. I've tried it a few times, and I can't feel anything in my core. Are you supposed to feel anything in your core, or is just like to move on your making sure that you contract the abdominals? So is it like I've never, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an anti-rotation exercise. So you should feel tension and you should feel resistance, but like I wouldn't say it's an exercise that you should feel like burning.
Mhm.
What you could do is if you're using a cable machine, maybe
Yeah.
increase the tension a little bit or walk yourself further from the point of resistance because that will help you. It forces you to engage to keep the tension and keep the resistance at the midline of the body. Honestly, sometimes I feel it more in my upper body because you're kind of like pushing out and then pulling in. So sometimes you almost feel it like a little bit more in like the biceps and the chest. But it is very much, it's an excellent anti rotation exercise. But I wouldn't say it's something that you like really like would feel the burn with, but it doesn't mean it's not working.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good to know. I thought maybe I did something wrong. But as you said, maybe if I and yeah, maybe I just, as you said, just move slightly away from the cable
Yeah.
machine and maybe increase slightly the weight. So maybe again, I'm not looking for to feel anything, but it's just like, is it doing anything? But I know it's sort of like a
Yeah.
staple, if you work on your core, right? It's just more of a core, it's a core exercise. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. And before we wrap up, Lena, how can our listeners or viewers connect or contact you?
Yeah, so I have a quote unquote open door policy, meaning if you want to send me an email or send me a DM, I'm always happy to chat. So it's pretty much training to excel everywhere. So training the number two in the letters XL.com is my website. Alena at trainingtoexcel.com is my email. And I'm at training to excel on Instagram. So I try to keep it very streamlined so you can kind of find me in all different places. But yeah, if anyone listening has any questions or wants to connect, I'm more than happy to chat. I'm always happy to connect with like-minded people and have conversations about strength conditioning or coaching or programming or whatever it might be. So yeah, I encourage anyone to reach out if they have questions.
Perfect. I will leave all the links in the description box of this video if you're watching us on YouTube, or in the show notes if you are listening to us on the podcast. I just want to say thank you so much, Alina, for your time, for your insights, for your knowledge. It's been absolutely fascinating and amazing talking to you. And apologies if I was just all over the place. I've become so rusty. Haven't done an episode in a while. So I think I was like all over the place with my questions.
No, not at all. I really appreciate you having me and I really appreciate the conversation. I think that's the beautiful thing about podcasts is you just kind of have a conversation and see where it goes and I have loved having this chat. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, Alina. It was a pleasure having you on my show. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm
You.
sure we'll chat soon.
Chat soon.